I'm David Hart, Executive Vice President at the Florida Chamber of Commerce. Welcome to another edition of the Florida Chamber's Bottom Line. Today, our special guest is Speaker of the House, Will Weatherford. Speaker, welcome.
Thank you. Honored to be here.
Speaker, during your 2 years as Speaker, you've really made a priority out of the importance of getting our pension system right. And I wonder if you could tell our viewers a little bit about the importance of pension reform to Florida's long-term future and how we can use it to protect both government employees' interests but also taxpayers' interests.
Well, if you look around the country, some of our peer states, when I say peer, some of the other big states, California, Illinois, New York, if you see what's taken place with their pension fund, they've allowed it to get away from them. And you look at the tax increases they've had to raise on their citizens to bail out their pension fund. I want to prevent that from happening in Florida. And some people say Florida's pension fund's in better shape than theirs, so we can leave it alone. And to me, that's exactly the reason why we need to fix it. And we need to make sure that we don't put our state in a position where we'll have to tax our businesses and our citizens to bail out a broken pension fund. Currently today, we're putting in $500 million a year. We're taking that away from education. We're taking that away from healthcare. And we're dumping it into our pension fund. We've got to find a way to stop doing that. And the only way to do it is to reform the system. And when we reform the system, what it will actually do is it'll create a sustainable pension fund for the future so that if you're a current employee, if you're a current retiree, you can count on that pension fund. But if we leave it alone today and we don't touch it and we don't reform it, eventually it will get to a point where the promises that have been made by our state to its workers will not be able to be kept. And that's what I'm focused on.
Speaker, while some have said our pension fund is strong, facts are stubborn things, and it's not lost on the Florida Chamber of Commerce that today, as you and I speak, we have a $21.6 billion unfunded liability, and so thank you for your leadership to help us fix that system. One area that, Speaker, you and the Florida Chamber have worked on together over the years, and I want to thank you for your leadership last year on legal reform efforts. With your leadership and Chair Metz, and certainly with Senator Richter in the Senate, you passed meaningful expert witness reform. Recently we learned that in Florida, a family of four will pay nearly $3,200 in basically a lawsuit abuse tax because of what we allow to go on in our court systems. We are ranked 41st worst in the country, and I know we do a lot of things right in Florida, but this is an area we've got to improve on. Can you give us some insights on what you think might happen this session and what's possible?
Yeah, well, first of all, we wouldn't have done the reforms that we've been able to get accomplished in the last few years if it wasn't for the Florida Chamber of Commerce. Y'all have been stalwart partners with us. Tort reform never just happens. You have to fight for it. You have to fight for it in both chambers. It takes a lot of work, it takes a lot of advocacy, it takes a lot of planning and strategy. And we've had some success in the last few years, and it's in large part due to the Florida Chamber, and so I want to thank you for that. This year again, in working in partnership with the Florida Chamber of Commerce, our hope is to address tort reform again. There's several bills moving through the process. We have a bad faith bill that's going to be up. We have truth and damages that's going to be up. We have a nursing home tort reform bill that is moving its way through the process. And so we have another opportunity to address the frivolous litigation that is plaguing our state. No one believes that someone who's been wronged by a business or by anyone else and can be proven that they've been wronged, should not be compensated for that. But we have a system we've created with loopholes that is fraught with an ability to force someone to pay damages that either did not occur or they're frivolous lawsuits in general, and you're writing a check to someone just to make them go away. We should not be the gotcha state. Florida should be the state that stands up for people but does not put businesses in a position of I gotcha. And there's things we could do this session to change that, but we're going to need the Florida Chamber with us to get it done.
Well, we'll be there by your side, and we thank you for your support of those issues. One area I'd like to turn to as we close is an education issue. We've had the privilege of working with you over the years on things like raising standards, on increased accountability, on greater digital opportunities for our students. But this year you've proposed, I think, a really interesting idea to expand choice through the tax credit scholarship program, and we support it, but I wonder if you could speak to why that's important right now.
Well, I just believe, regardless of where we are in the unemployment rate today, there are people who live in our state and in our society that don't even feel the difference between a 15% unemployment rate and a 5% unemployment rate. And it's because their grandparents were in poverty, their parents were in poverty, they're in poverty, and their kids will live in poverty if we don't do something to break the cycle. That cycle that we break is only broken with education. And there are people who live in a zip code that if you live in that zip code, you are destined to go to a failing public school. That's wrong. And parents should have options. And a lot of people say we should put all our resources in helping that failing school become a better school. I agree with that. There are things we can do to make that school better, and we're working on those. School grading, accountability, teacher performance pay. But in the meantime, shouldn't parents have a choice? Shouldn't they be able to send their child to a school of their choice, and particularly children who come from lower income households? And I think that's worth fighting for. We're going to fight for it, and when the gavel goes down at the end of this session, I hope we've done something significant.
We do too. Speaker Weatherford, and to our viewers, thank you for joining us on another edition of the Florida Chamber's Bottom Line.